and Patreon is cutting back on people based apparently on what MasterCard wants. MasterCard is acting vicariously through Patreon and PayPal, displaying concretely their political motivations. And when Sargon of Akkad was banned from Patreon, it provoked an exodus to an alternative platform, Subscribestar. That did not last long as their payment processing support was revoked. There have been two prominent cases within the last several months which payment processing was revoked. MasterCard was in both cases. MasterCard forced Patreon to blacklist jihad watchers Robert Spencer. Both Visa and MasterCard refused service to David Horowitz until they backtracked.
Well, the first thing is Robert Spencer, because on Saturday, I was getting into it, in sort of a Bantz way, okay, lighthearted, with this woman. And she said, "You follow Robert Spencer, you're blocked." Oh, okay. It's like that, is it? But yeah, okay, you know who Robert Spencer is, right? Jihad Watch, he's not very keen on radical Islam. That makes him, what, extreme right wing?
Yeah.
Look, I mean, if we have a situation here where Visa and MasterCard, and that's the accusation made in this case of Subscribestar, that Visa and MasterCard said no, not dealing with them. And, we got a list here of other financial institutions. I don't know, maybe it'll have to go to the constitutional amendment level. Maybe not that far, but quite simply that companies cannot ban people unless they are acting in an illegal manner. Because the power that is now demonstrated by these institutions, I was debating this on Twitter some months ago with some lefty, and I said, what, are we going to get to the point where the power company is going to turn off your electricity and your heat because they don't like your political opinions? And he said something like, maybe they should. Maybe they should.
Wow. Well, this is a very thoughtful thread by Nick Monroe. And he notes that MasterCard has increasingly gotten into the diversity game. In 2014, that's when the agenda of financial inclusion began for MasterCard. And so the political, social, and economic standpoint of MasterCard are one in the same. Can't talk about social inclusion without talking about financial inclusion. And PayPal has prominently pushed that it is committed to financial inclusion while, of course, financially excluding bad thinkers. MasterCard's big behind feminist agenda, behind the refugee agenda, behind the Globo Homo agenda, behind the Africa agenda. Essentially, we may be seeing the Obama administration's Operation Choke Point finally unmasked. A secret program launched under the Obama administration to punish political adversaries, plot by President Obama's Department of Justice, Federal Deposit Insurance Commission, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, and other government agencies to cut off banking and financial services for small businesses and industries that they deem to be political enemies. Some of these businesses included gun shops, ammunition shops, fireworks stalls, small dollar lenders, and home-based charities.
Well, this is a common prediction that our Cold War against Russia is going to push them into the arms of China, and we will have, an alternative economic system, even, an alternative payment system, right? That's what we're talking about here as well.
Yeah.
And this could be a way out for the dissidents of the right.
I was just going to say, we have no payment solution readily available, right? I mean, this is just pure speculation at this point, right? It's not like we're getting closer to one, are we?
No, I'm just saying that there is like a single Western payment system, a big one, that all of the world economy
right
is that goes through, right?
Right.
And the Russians fear that, sanctions and all that, pushing them out of this. And there's been suggested for some years that they are in the process of actually putting together their own system. There's a story from RT, November the 2nd. Russia's money transfer system, developed as an alternative to SWIFT, is now more popular than the global network, said Anatoly Asakov, head of the Russian Parliamentary Committee on Financial Markets. He explained that Moscow is already engaged in talks with Chinese, Turkish, and Iranian financial regulators on integrating a system for transfer of financial messages with financial messaging systems of other countries. This is a question, a real question, not rhetorical. Is there anything stopping web users in America, Canada, elsewhere in the West from starting financial arrangements with Russian banks?
Otto Poll says it is very difficult for U.S. citizens to open foreign bank accounts due to U.S. Treasury regulations and criminal laws on Americans. Kevin, don't you have some banking accounts in both Bermuda and Switzerland?
I don't know what I'd put in them if I did. I've never really had much of an investment in the usury system, I must say.
Kyle, do you see any way out of this stranglehold? I mean, the distant right is increasingly just getting shut out of the financial system, shut out of ways to raise money.
I'm actually quite thrilled about this development because what we have is the net is getting too wide. So enough people are pissed off that it actually matters. If it was restricted entirely to the dissident right or the narrowly construed dissident right, then it could go on forever. But they've managed to piss off enough people, I feel, that that something might actually get done.
Come on, someone on the left has got to get involved in this. There has to be some genuine leftists still out there. It wasn't all that long ago that they were railing against the gnomes of Zurich. This is many times worse than that. Of course, one of their guys, George Soros, is, at the top. So maybe it's all a who-whom question for them. But I mean, the idea that one's ability to do anything in life, I mean, going so far as to what? To rent an apartment, to, have cable service, any of that stuff is being threatened because banks don't like you. I mean, who's in charge here? I mean, David Horowitz is an extremist now. It's funny because this guy has been protesting that he's not been an extremist for decades. I remember when the SPLC first went after him, how terribly upset he was. And he argued along the basis of don't lump me in with those guys. Well, I hope he's learned his lesson, that to the SPLC and the ADL, and it turns out like Visa and MasterCard, they're all those guys. If you're not on our side 110%, you're one of those guys.